Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to a brand new week of remote learning. This week, we are going to be having a bit of a pause week for our English. So we're going to do a few different activities this week. So we're going to start off by doing a bit of editing. And then throughout the week, we're going to do some new skills. So looking at some conjunctions and looking at a new rainbow grammar skill. And then by the end of the week, we're going to put it all together to write a mini newspaper report. So we're going to pause on our story for now, and we're going to look at some new skills. So I'm just going to share my screen so we can see what we're doing today. So, what are we doing today? Oh, I'm covering it up now. Let me move myself out of the way. We're going to be spotting our own mistakes and up-leveling our writing. How? So by retrieving old learning. And why? So we can edit our setting description. So in front of you, you need your setting description from Thursday and Friday that you did with your dad waivers last week. And today we're going to edit them together. Now, hopefully you've all done your writing last week. If for any reason you haven't got your writing from last week, I'm going to post my Wabble, so my Waggle, which has a few mistakes in it that need fixing, on the class story, so you can have a go at editing this along with me. Okay, so get everything that you need in front of you now. I also have my pink pen. Okay, you would usually edit in purple pen, however, you might not have a purple pen at home, but any different colour pen or pencil from what you've written in is absolutely fine. So we are ready to go. We are ready to edit our work. So let's get started. So before we do our editing today, well, this is going to lead into our editing, this is going to help us when we edit. We're just going to look at this idea of sentences versus fragments. Now, this is not anything that you haven't done before. I'm just giving it different language. So this is to check that our work makes sense, because sometimes some of us write fragments and not sentences. So when we edit in a minute, we're going to check that all of our sentences are actually sentences and not fragments. A fragment is a group of words that does not make a sentence. So it might be missing a subject or a predicate or even both. Okay, it doesn't make sense on its own. It's kind of like a clause. Okay, it's kind of like a subordinate clause. It doesn't make sense on its own. Therefore, we can't have it as a sentence on its own. For example, here, ate a great meal. What's wrong with this fragment? What is it missing? Have a little think. Okay, hopefully you notice it was missing a subject. Okay, so it doesn't make sense on its own. Here then, a sentence is a group of words that includes a subject and a predicate. For example, Ollie ate a great meal. That makes sense on its own because it's got a subject and a predicate. What we're going to have a go at doing that now then is I'm going to show you some sentences and fragments. I want you to see if you can tell me which of these are sentences and which ones are fragments, so which ones need a bit more help to become a complete sentence. Pause the video now for me and see if you can have a go at working out which ones are sentences and which ones are fragments. Hopefully you've had a go looking at our sentences. We're going to sort them out now into sentences and fragments. So our first one, the stream, an outlet of the Narmada River. This one is a fragment, okay, because it's not got a predicate. It's got something called it's not a non-finite clause, what it's called? It's called an appositive, okay, so I've got some more information about my stream, but I've not actually told the reader what the stream is doing or where the stream is. Okay, I've not told the reader anything else about the stream. I've not got a predicate. So that is a fragment. Surrounding us was an array of distinctive Himalayan creatures. Perfect. Got a fronted adverbial. I've got an predicate, was, and I've got a subject as well, which was an array of distinctive Himalayan creatures. Sorry, the predicate would be surrounding us. Okay, so this one is a complete sentence. Beneath the towering peaks of the mountains, amongst the forest of ancient trees. Now, a few of us have made this mistake because when we were doing our fronted adverbial work, okay, we didn't finish off our sentences. So, beneath the towering peaks of the mountains, amongst the forest of ancient trees. This sentence includes two fronted adverbials, but it's not a complete sentence because it's missing a subject and a predicate. Okay, so that one would be a fragment. The snow cloaked the trees until the sun began to warm the branches. Okay, hopefully we can see here, this is a complete sentence. We've got a subject, a predicate, and then we've also got a subordinating conjunction, which introduces a subordinate clause. Perfect, we're happy with that one. That one is a sentence. Shone through the branches would be a fragment because we've not got a subject there. Okay, it's not the sunlight shone through the branches, we're missing that subject. Okay, so these are some of kind of like the fragments that you might want to look out for when you're editing your work, because if you have used a fragment but not a sentence, you need to add a little bit more information to it to make it make sense. So here we go then. I have given you some of our fragments. Now what I want you to have a go at doing is making them into sentences. Okay, so some of them might need a subject, some of them might need a predicate, and some of them might need both. Okay, so can you finish the fragments and turn them into sentences? Have a go for me now. Wonderful. Hopefully you've had a go at that. So let's just look at a couple of examples together. So beneath the towering peaks of the mountains, amongst the forest of ancient trees. Here I've got two fronted adverbials which tell me where, but I've got no subject and I've got no predicate. So I need to add that in. So I might go for example, thinking on the spot, should have planned this. Beneath the towering peaks of the mountains, amongst the forest of ancient trees, the woodland was, what should I go for? Cloaked in crisp. Okay, so I've added to my sentence, I've added my subject and my predicate. Fabulous. This one here, something shone through the branches. Okay, so I've got a predicate, but I've not got a subject. So I'm going to change this to add a subject. For example, I might just go for something simple like light. Okay, I could go for something a bit more complicated like the bright sunlight shone through the branches. Okay, I needed to add there a subject to my sentence. Finally then, this one down here, the stream and outlet of the Narmada River. I've got a subject, I've got it a positive, so I've added a bit more information about my subject, but I've not got a predicate, I've not got a verb, so I've got to say something about my subject. So for example, this one, the stream and outlet of the Narmada River trickled by, I could just leave it as trickled by. I could have something like flowed nearby. Okay, so I've got a subject and a positive, which is a word we haven't actually learn't yet, but that's just an extra bit of information adding to that now. And I've got a predicate, flowed nearby. Well done if you came up with some ideas. We're all on top of the text. Well done if you came up with some ideas to change those fragments into sentences. What you're going to have a go at doing now then is checking your work that it makes sense. Okay, and one of the things that you might need to do is see if you have any fragments in your work that need to be changed into sentences. You're also going to check that you have done it that you've written in the correct tense. Okay, actually, I'm just going to add something while I'm here. I've just thought of something. What a lot of us have done is we've not used the correct was or were. So we've used a was when it's meant to be a were. Okay, so remembering that we only use a one if we're talking about something singular. Wonderful. What I'd like you to do now then is I'd like you to have a look at your writing and I'd like you to see if you can edit to check that it makes sense. So you're not looking at anything else, you're not looking at spellings, you're not looking at vocabulary, you're not looking at sentence structure, you are just looking to check that your work makes sense and all of your sentences are sentences and not fragments. What we're going to do is, if you pause the video now and have a go, I'm then going to model it on my... Does that make sense? Should I model it first? No, you know what, I'm going to change my mind. Just like I would in lesson, I am going to model it first so that you can see what I mean. And then you're going to have a go at editing your own work. So let me just pause my video. Wonderful. So now I'm going to have a go then at editing my own work, looking to make sure that I've got sentences and not fragments. So let's check. Beneath the towering peaks of the mountains, amongst the forest of old trees, the woodland was alive with the mesmerising sights and sounds of rural India. Yep, happy with that. Sunlight poured through the forest canopy and danced on the leaves below, so the air was still bitterly cold, biting at our cheeks like razor blades. I don't think we should go in any further, Asher, he even pleaded, beginning to look increasingly anxious. For as far as the eye could see, there was big pine trees. Right, this is was and were. There's more than one pine tree, so I'm going to cross out my was, and I'm going to change that to were. Big pine trees were cloaked in a layer of snow. That were cloaked in a layer of snow, until the winter sun began to rapidly warm the branches. Rapidly, the stream and outlet of the Narmada River. Here then I've got a fragment that's not a sentence. So I need to add a little bit into this sentence, into this fragment, to make it become a sentence. So rapidly, the stream and outlet of the Narmada River, I'm going to change that and I'm going to make it into a sentence. So I need to add a predicate. So I'm going to go flowed nearby. Full stop. I'll put my full stop there. Surrounding us is an array of distinctive Himalayan creatures. Is present tense. I'm talking in past tense. So I'm going to change that to was. An array of distinctive Himalayan creatures, from the mouse hares to the monal birds, with bright, colourful feathers. Before long, the sun began to set and the forest got dark. Will our journey ever end? Our hearts raced at the prospect of spending the night in the increasingly dangerous forest. Okay, so I've checked my tense, I've checked my was's and my words, and I've checked to make sure that all of my sentences are sentences and not fragments, so they have a subject and a predicate. I want you to pause the video now for me and have a go at doing that in your work. Wonderful, right, hopefully you've had a go. What we're going to check now is we're going to check our spellings. Now, if you have a lot of spellings that you are struggling with, okay, we're not worried about you getting every single spelling right, okay, but there are some words that we should definitely be getting right. Okay, so you're going to check now to see if you need to correct any of your spellings using a dictionary. Okay, I also want you to check to see if you've used the correct homophones. So for example here, there, and two is something that we get wrong quite a bit still in year 5. So I know, to be honest, because I've done this on my computer, and that I've spelled all of my words correctly. However, I can see here, I have got a there. So I'm just going to check that I've used the right there. So for as far as the eye could see, there were big pine trees. There were means kind of there was over there. So, but this is the wrong there because that's the possessive there, which means it belonged to them. Okay, so I'm going to change my there to the correct there. This is your chance now then to pause the video and have a go at editing your spellings, okay? Paying particular attention to if you've used some of our common homophones. Wonderful, right, hopefully most of our words are spelled correctly now. What we're going to look at now is some of our basics, so our full stops, our commas, and I've written full stops, commas, and full stops. That's not what I mean. I'm able to make mistakes and learn from them. What I do mean is capital letters, commas, and full stops. So each sentence should start with a capital letter and end with a stop. And I should be using a comma for fronted adverbials and lists. So I'm going to check my work now to see where I need to have a comma and where I need to have a capital letter and a full stop. So beneath the towering peaks of the mountains, that's my first fronted adverbial. Okay, so I need a comma to follow it. Amongst the forest of old trees. Again, fronted adverbial, need a comma afterwards. The woodland was alive with the mesmerising sights and sounds of rural India. Happy with that? The sunlight poured through the forest canopy and danced on the leaves below, so the air was still bitterly cold. In fact, I've got another was and when here, a was and were that I haven't noticed. That should be was still bitterly cold. That's okay, I'm allowed to go back and notice my past mistakes. Biting at our cheeks like razor blades. I don't think we should go in any further, Asha, Jeevan pleaded, beginning to look increasingly anxious. Okay, now I need to remember that after my speech, in my inverted commas, I need punctuation, so I'm going to add in my full stop there after my speech. For as far as the eye could see, here I've got the start of a sentence, and I've not got a capital letter, which is a silly mistake, so I'm just going to change it. For as far as the eye could see, there were big pine trees that were cloaked in a layer of snow until the winter sun began to slowly warm the branches. Rapidly, the stream, an outlet of the Narmada River, flowed nearby. Surrounding us was an array of distinctive Himalayan creatures, from the mouse hares to the monal birds, with bright, colourful feathers. Before long, the sun began to set and the forest got dark. Will our perilous journey ever end? Okay, here I've used a rhetorical question. A rhetorical question needs to have a question mark. Our hearts raced at the prospect of spending the night in the increasingly dangerous forest. Our hearts is a new sentence, so I need a capital O there. Perfect, so I've checked to make sure that I've got all of my commas, my full stops, and my capital letters. Can you now do the same, please, with your work? Wonderful, well done. Right, our next point then that we're going to look at editing is our fronted adverbials. Now we had a big focus on fronted adverbials and lots of us have done really, really well. So here I just want you to check that you've done the very best fronted adverbials that you can, and you might want to up level your fronted adverbials by using more than one if you haven't already to zoom in. Now actually I've used two up here. I've used beneath the towering peaks of the mountains, amongst the forest of old trees. Okay, I'm thinking actually I could actually use 3 here to kind of add even more of a zoom in effect. Okay, so I'm going to go for an even kind of further out one. I'm going to go for in the Himalayas. I'm going to change this to a lowercase b because it's no longer the start of my sentence. Beneath the towering peaks of the mountains, amongst the forest of old trees, the woodland was alive with the mesmerizing sights and sounds of rural India. Okay, so I've changed my first sentence to actually use 3 fronted adverbials to really zoom in on my setting. Okay, you might also want to change some of your other fronted adverbials. So for example, you did one for where, here for as far as the eye can see. If you want to up level your one that you did for your W sentence, you might want to do that now. Okay, so can you up level your fronted adverbials? You might even want to add a bit more detail. So in the majestic or majestic is spelled with a J, not a G, Miss Higgins. In the majestic Himalayas, beneath the towering peaks of the mountains amongst the forest of old trees. You might want to add some adjectives to kind of up level your linking adverbs, fronted adverbials even more. Pause the video now and have a go at that for me. Wonderful. Right, we've just got a couple more steps to do before we're going to be really, really happy with our DAD waivers. The next one is to check our subordinate clauses, okay? So first you're going to check that you've included one, then you're going to check that it's punctuated properly. So I'm scanning for my subordinate clause, okay? So I'm looking for a subordinating conjunction. This one's coordinating. Okay, and here I've got my subordinating conjunction, okay, because I've got until. So I'm just going to check that I'm happy with it. For as far as the eye could see, there were big pine trees that were cloaked in a layer of snow until the winter sun began to slowly warm the branches. Perfect. I don't need a comma because my subordinate clause is at the end of my sentence. If it's at the start, remember you need a comma after your clause. Can you check now that you've used a subordinate clause correctly? And if you haven't, can you add one into your work for me now? Fabulous. Right. Our last one then, which is a nice one to do, is to check and up level our descriptive language. Okay, so you might want to use the Descriptosaurus pages that I posted last week, or you could use a thesaurus. Obviously, if you don't have a thesaurus at home, you can just use one on the internet by searching for synonyms of certain words. Okay, so for example, I'm going to have a look here to see how I can edit and up level my vocabulary. So I'm going to have a look for words which I think look a bit boring. I want to up level them. And the first one I can see here is this word old. Old trees is a bit boring. So I'm going to change it to a better word, ancient. Okay, up leveling that vocabulary. Scanning my work for any more words that I think are a bit boring, really. You don't have to up level every single word, okay, but it's just about choosing that right vocabulary to really help your reader visualize the setting. And I've got another one here, I've got big, okay? So I might want to change this word to colossal, I think, okay? So colossal means like really, really big. In fact, do I know how to spell colossal? I'm gonna try. I think that's the right spelling of colossal. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go and double check that because I don't want to put a word that was spelled incorrectly into my piece of work that I've worked very hard to edit, okay? So there we go then. So I've edited my work. Okay, I've followed all of those steps. What you should have now is you should have a piece of work that makes lots of sense. So you shouldn't have any fragments. All of your sentences should make sense. It should be punctuated correctly, and it should have some really great vocabulary. Okay, so well done for having a go at editing your work, and we'd love to see the new work that you've come up with. Now, if you would like to, now that you've edited your work, you can spend some time either typing or writing your write out very neatly. Okay, you can even accompany it with a bit of drawing or a bit of art. to really showcase all of your amazing writing. But obviously that is up to you, okay, depending on how you feel. As long as you have edited your work, you have completed the task. Okay, well done for all your hard work on this write. We were so impressed on Friday to see all of your writing, and we will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.